Video games, it helped me survive a plane crash. My parents always said gaming would rot my brain. My girlfriend complained I spent more time with my PlayStation than with her. My boss joked that my 2,000 hours in flight simulators would never pay off in the real world. They were all wrong. Last October, I was on a small charter plane flying from Anchorage to a remote fishing lodge with 8 other passengers. The pilot was a guy named Douglas, who'd been flying these routes for 30 years. Clear skies, smooth air, nothing to worry about. I was playing a mobile game on my phone when I heard Douglas make a weird choking sound from the cockpit. The co-pilot seat was empty because it was such a routine flight. I looked up and saw Douglas slumped over the controls, his body convulsing. The plane immediately started banking left and dropping altitude. People screamed, oxygen masks deployed, and I realized with absolute horror that nobody was flying this aircraft. I'd spent thousands of hours in Microsoft Flight Simulator, thousands more in combat flight games. I knew the instruments, I understood the physics. I'd virtually landed hundreds of planes in conditions way worse than this. But virtual and real are very different things. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely unbuckle my seatbelt. A woman behind me was praying loudly. A man was trying to call 911 on a phone with no signal. The plane was descending at 500 feet per minute toward a mountain range that looked way too close. I pushed past the flight attendant and climbed into the cockpit. Douglas was unconscious, probably a heart attack. I checked his pulse, still alive, but completely out. I grabbed the yoke and pulled back, trying to level us out. The altimeter was spinning. We'd dropped from 12,000 feet to 8,000 in less than 2 minutes. The radio crackled with air traffic control, asking Douglas to respond. I grabbed the headset with one hand while keeping the other on the yoke. "This is passenger Terrence Blake," I said, my voice cracking. "The pilot is unconscious. I'm a civilian with flight simulation experience. I need help landing this aircraft." Silence. Then a calm voice came through. "Terrence, this is approach control. We're going to get you down safely. What's your current altitude and heading?" I read the instruments back to them, grateful that every dial looked exactly like the ones I'd stared at on my computer screen for years. The controller started giving me step-by-step instructions, but honestly, I already knew most of it. Reduce throttle to slow descent, adjust trim to stabilize pitch, bank gently to correct heading. My muscle memory from gaming was doing half the work, while my brain processed the controller's guidance. The passengers behind me had gone silent. Either they'd accepted their fate, or they'd realized panicking wouldn't help. I focused on the horizon line, keeping the wings level, watching the altimeter stabilize. We were still at 6,500 feet, with mountains peaking at 5,000 below us. The controller guided me toward a small regional airport 40 miles east. 40 miles felt like 40,000. Every gust of wind, every slight turbulence made my stomach drop. I'd crashed in simulators before. You just hit restart. There was no restart button here. The flight attendant appeared beside me and asked if I needed water. I almost laughed. What I needed was a time machine back to that morning so I could take a different flight. But I just shook my head and kept my eyes forward. The runway appeared on the horizon 20 minutes later. It looked impossibly small. The controller talked me through the approach speed, the flap settings, the descent angle. I'd done this exact sequence probably 500 times in games, but games don't make your palms sweat through your shirt. Games don't fill the cabin with the sound of crying children. I lined us up as best I could, fighting crosswind that kept pushing us right. The ground rushed up way faster than it ever did on a screen. I pulled back on the yoke at the last second, felt the wheels slam into concrete, heard the screeching of brakes I was pressing with every ounce of strength I had. We bounced once, twice, then settled. The plane veered left, clipped a runway light, and finally stopped 50 feet from the grass. Nobody moved for a solid 10 seconds. Then everyone started screaming and crying and hugging. Douglas survived his heart attack thanks to paramedics who met us on the runway. All 9 passengers walked away with minor injuries. The aviation board reviewed the flight data and said my landing was better than some licensed pilots they'd seen.